When I unfolded that small, crumpled piece of paper, I never imagined that 5 hastily written words from my daughter would change everything. "Pretend to be sick and leave." I looked at her in confusion, but she just shook her head, eyes begging me to trust her. Only much later did I understand why. That morning started like any other in our home in the suburbs of Chicago. I had been married to Richard Cooper for a little over 2 years, a man I met after my divorce, who later pushed hard for us to look like a real family on paper. To outsiders, our life looked perfect: a spacious house, money in the bank, and my daughter Jenna finally having the stability she needed. Jenna had always been quiet, an observer more than a talker. At 15, she was like a sponge, absorbing everything around her. At first, her relationship with Richard was tense, understandable, for a child adjusting to a stepfather. But over time, things seemed to improve. At least, I thought they had. That morning, Richard was hosting a brunch at our home for some business partners to discuss expanding his company. He wanted to impress them, so I'd spent the entire week preparing everything from the menu to the smallest decorative details. I was finishing a salad in the kitchen when Jenna walked in. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with something I couldn't yet name. "Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I need to show you something in my room." Just then, Richard entered, adjusting his tie. He was always perfectly dressed, even for a home event. "What are you two whispering about?" he asked, his smile never reaching his eyes. "Nothing," I answered quickly. "Jenna just needs help with a school project." "Make it quick," he said, glancing at his watch. "Guests will be here soon. I want you beside me when they arrive." I nodded and followed Jenna upstairs. As soon as we entered her room, she shut the door fast. "What's going on? You're scaring me." Jenna didn't answer. She took a small piece of paper from her desk and placed it in my hand, her eyes darting toward the door. I opened it and read 5 words that made my stomach drop. "Jenna, is this some kind of joke?" I asked, irritated. "I don't have time for this. Guests are coming." "It's not a joke," she whispered. "Please, Mom, trust me. You have to leave the house right now. Say you feel sick, but you need to go." The desperation in her eyes froze my blood. "Jenna, what's happening?" She looked toward the door and spoke so softly I could barely hear. "I can't explain now. I promise I'll tell you everything later, but you have to trust me." Before I could ask more, footsteps echoed in the hallway. The doorknob turned, and Richard stepped in, looking annoyed. "What's taking so long? The guests are here." I looked at Jenna. She looked back, pleading silently. Instinctively, I decided to trust my daughter. "Sorry, Richard," I said, putting a hand to my forehead. "I feel a little dizzy, probably another migraine." He frowned. "You were fine a moment ago. It just hit me suddenly," I said, forcing a weary smile. "Go ahead and start without me. I'll rest a bit." The doorbell rang, and he left reluctantly. The moment we were alone, Jenna grabbed my hand tightly. "Don't rest, Mom. We have to leave now. Tell him you're going to the pharmacy to get stronger medicine." "I'll go with you." "Jenna, that's ridiculous. I can't just abandon the guests." "Mom, please, this isn't a joke. It's about your life." There was such fear in her voice that my stomach dropped. I grabbed my purse and car keys. As we stepped into the living room, Richard was chatting with 2 men in suits. "Richard," I interrupted, "my headache's getting worse. I'm going to the pharmacy for medicine. Jenna will come with me." His smile faltered slightly before turning to his guests. "My wife isn't feeling well." Then to me, he said, "Make it quick." I didn't know why, but his eyes made me deeply uneasy. Once we got into the car, Jenna was trembling. "Drive, Mom, as far as possible. I'll explain on the way." My heart pounded as I started the car. "What's so serious?" "Richard's trying to kill you," she said, her voice breaking. "I heard him on the phone last night. He said he was going to put poison in your tea." I slammed the brakes, barely missing a truck ahead. My body froze. "Jenna, that's crazy. You think I'd joke about this?" Her voice cracked. I heard everything. The honk from the car behind jolted me back to reality. I pressed the gas, driving aimlessly. Tell me exactly what you heard. Last night I went downstairs for water. His office door was slightly open, the light still on. He was whispering on the phone. At first I thought it was business, but then I heard your name. He said, "Everything's ready for tomorrow morning. Linda will drink her tea like always. No one will suspect a thing. It'll look like a heart attack." Then he laughed. "Mom." He laughed like it was nothing. My stomach tightened. It couldn't be true. The man I lived with, planned a future with, was plotting to kill me? Maybe you misheard. Maybe he was talking about someone else or just using a figure of speech. Jenna shook her head. "No, Mom." He said it clearly. He mentioned the brunch. He said once you're dead, he'll have full control of the insurance money and the house. My heart stopped. The insurance money. Yes, Mom, the life insurance policy you two signed 6 months ago, $1 million. I couldn't breathe. Richard had convinced me to sign it, saying it was to protect your future, but now I realized I was the plan. There's more, Jenna continued. After the call, he pulled out some papers. When he left, I went in to look. They were debt files. His company's bankrupt. And here, she said, pulling a folded paper from her pocket, a bank statement under his name. He's been transferring money for months, your money from the sale of Grandma and Grandpa's apartment. I pulled over to the side of the road, dizzy. Everything I believed in crumbled. Richard hadn't just betrayed me, he was broke, and now he wanted me dead for the payout. "Oh my God," I whispered. Jenna placed her hand on mine. "It's not your fault, Mom. He fooled everyone, even me." "Did you take those documents?" I asked, panic rising. "What if he finds out?" "I only took pictures and put them back," Jenna said, though she still looked anxious. I reached for my phone. "We have to call the police." "And say what? That he talked on the phone about killing you? That we saw some debt papers? You don't have real proof." She was right. No one would believe us. A respected businessman versus a panicked wife and her teenage daughter. I realized then that the life I thought was safe had become a deadly trap. As I tried to think, my phone buzzed. A message from Richard. "Where are you and Jenna? The guests are asking about you." A chill ran down my spine. The text sounded normal, too normal, as if he hadn't just planned to murder me. "What do we do now, Mom?" Jenna asked, trembling. I had no answer. We couldn't go home, but we couldn't just vanish either. Richard had money, connections. If we ran blindly, he'd find us. "First, we need proof," I said after a long pause. "Real proof for the police." "Like what? You mean the poison he planned to use today?" A reckless plan began forming in my mind, born from fear but fueled by anger. "We're going back," I said, starting the car. "Are you crazy? He'll kill you," Jenna cried. "Not if I act first," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "Think about it, Jenna. If we run without proof, what happens? He'll say, 'I lost my mind, kidnapped you,' and disappeared. Then he'll track us down. That would be even worse." I turned the car around, heading home. "The only thing we can rely on is solid evidence. The poison he planned to use, that's our chance. If we find it, the police will believe us." Jenna looked at me, a mix of fear and admiration in her eyes. "But how will you find it without him noticing?" "We'll pretend nothing happened. I'll tell him I went to the pharmacy, took painkillers, and feel better. You'll say you have a headache and go to your room. While I talk to Richard and the guests, you search his office, check anywhere he might have been lately." Jenna nodded, pale but determined. "If he catches me or gets suspicious, what do I do?" "Text me one word now. I'll find a reason to leave immediately, and if you find anything, take photos only. Don't move anything. If he notices something's missing, we're done." The closer we got to the house, the faster my heart raced. I was about to walk back into the lion's den to face the man who wanted me dead. Everything felt unreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. When I parked in the driveway, there were more cars than before. All the guests had arrived. "Remember the plan," I said as we walked to the door. "Act normal. If you feel unsafe, leave the house and run to Mrs. Carroll's next door. Got it?" Jenna squeezed my hand and nodded. Laughter filled the room as we entered. In the living room, nearly a dozen people chatted, champagne flutes in hand. Richard stood in the center, telling a story that had everyone laughing. When he saw us, he froze for a moment, then quickly recovered. "Ah, there you are," he said, slipping an arm around my waist. That touch, once comforting, now made my skin crawl. "Feeling better?" "Yes, the medicine's kicking in," I forced a smile. "Good," he said, turning to Jenna. "You look a little pale, sweetheart." "I have a headache too," Jenna said, perfectly in character. "I'll go lie down." "Sure, go rest. We're just downstairs." Jenna went upstairs while I accepted a glass of water instead of champagne, claiming my medicine didn't mix with alcohol. "No tea today?" he asked casually, making my stomach twist. "Not today," I said lightly. "Caffeine makes the migraine worse." Something flickered in his eyes, then vanished. "Smart. Come on, I want to introduce you to a few people." His hand stayed on my back as he guided me around the room. I smiled, but inside I was trembling. Every touch from him made my skin crawl. Every compliment felt like poison. "Linda's a university professor," he bragged to one of his associates. "She teaches American literature, brilliant mind." I felt sick. How many times had he said, "I love you," while secretly plotting my death? I glanced at my phone. No message. That meant Jenna was still searching, or hadn't found anything. About 20 minutes later, as we chatted with a couple about the economy, my phone buzzed. One word appeared: now. My blood froze. "Excuse me," I said softly, forcing a polite smile. "I need to check on my daughter." Before Richard could respond, I slipped away and hurried upstairs. I found Jenna in her room, pale as a ghost. "He's coming up," she whispered. "I saw him on the stairs. Did you find anything?" "Yes, in his desk drawer a small bottle, no label." I took pictures. Before I could say more, footsteps echoed outside, then Richard's voice. "Linda, Jenna, are you in there?" I looked at Jenna. We couldn't run into the hall. The window was our only option, but we were on the second floor. "Don't say anything," I whispered. "Just act normal." The door opened. Richard stepped in, his gaze sweeping over us. "Everything okay?" His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "Fine," I said casually. "Jenna still feels bad. I just came up to check on her." He stared at us for a moment, then asked, "And you, feeling better?" "Yes, I'll be back with the guests soon." He smiled, cold and thin. "Good. Oh, I made you some tea, your favorite. It's waiting in the kitchen." My stomach tightened. That was the poisoned tea. "Thank you, but I'll skip it today. The medicine's working." "I insist," he said smoothly, but there was steel under his tone. "It's a new blend I ordered just for you. Helps with headaches." I knew instantly. If I refused, he'd suspect something. If I drank it, I'd die. "All right," I said, stalling. "Let me stay with Jenna a few more minutes, then I'll come down." He hesitated, then nodded. "Don't take too long. The guests are asking about you." When he closed the door, Jenna looked at me, eyes wide. "The tea," she whispered. "He'll make you drink it." "I know," I said, heart pounding. "We have to get out through the window if we must." But then, the sound of metal turning stopped me. The door lock clicked. I rushed to the handle, it wouldn't budge. Richard had locked us in. "He locked it," Jenna cried, pulling the handle frantically. Panic surged through me, but I forced myself to think. If he locked the door, he suspected something. Maybe he'd already noticed the office was disturbed. "The window," I said, pulling the curtains aside. I looked down about 16 feet to the grass below. "Not fatal, but enough to break a leg if we fell wrong. It's too high, Mom." "I know, but we have no choice." I glanced around and spotted a thick comforter on the bed. "We'll use it as a rope." I tore the blanket quickly, tying it to the leg of the heavy wooden table. It wasn't long enough to reach the ground, but it would soften the fall. "Mom," Jenna whispered urgently, pointing at the door. "He's coming back." I heard the footsteps getting closer. "Go," I urged, throwing the makeshift rope out the window. "You first." Hold on tight and drop when you're a few feet from the ground. Bend your knees when you land." She hesitated for only a second before climbing out. The sound of a key turning echoed again. "Jump," I said, gripping the fabric until I saw her let go. She hit the grass, rolled, and stood up, signaling she was fine. There was no time left. The bedroom door burst open. Richard had arrived. Without thinking another second, I grabbed the blanket and jumped out the window. The fabric burned my palms as I slid down fast. Just as I reached the end, I heard an enraged shout echo from the bedroom. "Linda!" Richard's voice roared, twisted with fury. I let go immediately. The fall jolted my ankle, sharp pain shooting up my leg, but adrenaline numbed it almost instantly. I got up at once. "Run," I yelled. Jenna was a few yards away, staring wide-eyed up at the second floor. I followed her gaze and saw Richard leaning halfway out the window, his face distorted with rage. For one terrifying second, I thought he might jump after us, but then he disappeared from sight. "He's coming down the stairs," I said, gripping Jenna's hand tightly. "We have to move now." We ran across the backyard, I limping from the pain, heading toward the low wall that separated our housing area from the side road. Jenna climbed over first. I followed, wincing as my ankle flared when my feet hit the ground. "Where now, Mom?" she asked, breathless. I scanned around, searching for a way out. Our neighborhood had a security gate, but it wasn't heavily guarded. The main post was a few hundred yards away, and I was certain Richard had already called them, probably spinning a story about his unstable wife running away with her teenage daughter. That way, I pointed toward the line of trees leading to a small wooded area behind the subdivision. "We'll cut through there and take the side exit." Behind us, a door slammed and voices shouted. He'd probably enlisted the guests to help, turning our escape into a spectacle. I could already see the story he'd tell, that I was unstable, and he was the devoted husband. I would not let him paint me as the crazy one. We ran into the woods, a small patch where residents usually took morning walks. It was deserted now, thank God. We stayed on the narrow path, moving quickly but quietly. "Where are the photos?" I asked. Jenna pulled out her phone and showed me the images of a small amber glass bottle with no label, hidden among papers in Richard's desk drawer. It looked ordinary, harmless even, but I knew that was the weapon he meant to use to kill me. "There's more," Jenna said, swiping to the next picture. On the screen was a sheet of paper in Richard's handwriting. A list of times and notes. 10:30, guests arrive. 11:45, dose her. Effect in 15 to 20 minutes. Pretend concern. Call emergency at 12:10, too late. My stomach twisted. A murder plan laid out like a meeting schedule. "My God," I whispered. "He really planned to kill us today." Voices echoed in the distance. They were getting closer. "Hurry," I said, pulling Jenna deeper into the woods. The side gates nearby. We left the path, weaving through trees. Each step sent pain shooting through my ankle, but fear pushed me forward. Finally, we saw a small iron gate, the maintenance entrance. I pushed it, but it was locked. Jenna glanced around, eyes brightening. "Your resident card, Mom. Try scanning it." I fumbled through my purse, found the card, and swiped it across the reader. The green light blinked, the gate clicked open. We slipped out onto a quiet back road behind the neighborhood, empty, except for a few houses and small shops. "Where now?" Jenna asked, still clutching my hand. I thought fast. We couldn't go to any friend's house. That would be the first place he'd check. "We'll take a cab to Woodfield Mall," I said. "We'll figure things out there and call the police." We hurried toward the main road and waved down a taxi. The driver eyed us curiously, two disheveled, breathless women with fear written all over their faces, but he said nothing when I told him. "To the nearest mall, please." In the car, Jenna leaned against my shoulder, trembling. "You okay, sweetheart?" I asked softly, stroking her hair. "I'm scared," she whispered. "What if he finds us?" "He won't," I said, though my voice wasn't as steady as I hoped. "We have proof now. The police will protect us." At the mall, I chose a cafe on the second floor, busy enough to blend in, but with a quiet corner. We ordered 2 hot chocolates and sat tucked away from view. "I'm calling the police," I said, pulling out my phone. The screen showed dozens of missed calls and messages from Richard. My hands shook as I opened the latest one. "Linda, please come home. I'm worried about you and Jenna. If this is about our argument yesterday, we can talk. Don't do anything rash. I love you." The deceit in those words made me sick. He was crafting his story, preparing to play the worried husband with a mentally unstable wife. "What's he doing, Mom?" Jenna asked. "He's faking evidence," I said, handing her the phone. "He's going to tell them I'm paranoid." Another message arrived. "I've called the police. They're looking for you both. Please think about Jenna." My blood ran cold. He hadn't just called the police, he'd convinced them that I was unstable and dangerous. "This is bad," I murmured. "If they act on his story, we're in trouble." "What do we do?" Jenna asked, eyes welling up. I took a deep breath, thinking fast. "I'll call Fatima, my old college friend. She's a criminal lawyer. She'll know what to do." I dialed, praying she'd answer. "Fatima, it's Linda," I said as soon as I heard her voice. "My daughter and I are in serious danger. I need your help." I told her everything. The note Jenna gave me, the overheard phone call, the photos of the bottle, and written plan, our escape. Fatima listened intently, interrupting only to clarify details. "Where are you now?" she asked. "Woodfield Mall, second-floor cafe." "Stay there," she said firmly. "I'll be there in about 30 minutes. Don't talk to anyone, especially the police, until I arrive. Got it?" "Got it," I said, feeling a wave of relief. We sat silently, eyes on the cafe entrance. Every man who walked in made my heart race, terrified I'd see Richard. "How did you figure it out so early?" I asked, squeezing Jenna's hand. "What made you suspect something was wrong before last night?" Jenna looked down, her voice quiet. "I've had a bad feeling for a while. The way he looked at you when he thought no one noticed it was cold. Mom. Every time you mentioned the apartment money, he tensed up. I overheard him on the phone saying his project was behind schedule. I thought it was work, but after last night, everything made sense." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked gently. "Because I wasn't sure," she said. "You seemed so happy. After what happened with Dad, I didn't want to ruin it for you just because I had doubts." Tears filled my eyes. My 15-year-old daughter had seen the truth I'd been too blind to notice. She had protected me when it should have been the other way around. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't see the signs. It's not your fault," Jenna said calmly, sounding far older than her years. "He fooled everyone." My phone buzzed again. Another message from Richard. "Police found blood in Jenna's room. Linda, what did you do? Please tell me you're both safe." I showed Jenna. Her face went pale. "Blood? There's no blood in my room." "He's planting evidence," I said, horror rising. "He wants them to think I hurt you." "We have to go," Jenna said, standing up. "What if the police show up here?" "No," I said firmly. "Fatima told us to stay. If we leave, it'll look like we're running, which is exactly what he wants." But just as I said that, 2 uniformed police officers walked through the cafe entrance. They scanned the room, clearly looking for someone. "Mom," Jenna whispered, spotting them too. "Stay calm," I said, even as my heart pounded wildly. "We haven't done anything wrong. We have proof. Just talk to them carefully." The officers spotted us and approached, their expressions confirming they knew exactly who we were. Richard must have given them our names and a description. "Mrs. Linda Cooper?" the older officer asked when he reached our table. "Yes, that's me," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Your husband is very worried about you and your daughter," he said, his tone polite but cautious. "He reported that you left home in a distressed state and might pose a danger to your child." Before I could answer, Jenna spoke up. "That's a lie. My stepfather is trying to kill us. I have proof." The officers exchanged skeptical looks. The older one frowned. "That's a very serious accusation, young lady." "We have real evidence," I said firmly. "My daughter found a bottle of poison in my husband's office, along with a detailed schedule of how and when he planned to kill me today." The younger officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, your husband said you might be suffering from a mental condition. He said carefully, choosing his words. He mentioned similar episodes in the past. Anger flared inside me. Richard had thought of everything. That's completely false, I said, forcing myself to stay calm. He's lying to cover his crime. Jenna held up her phone. Look at this. This is the bottle I found in his desk, and this is the note outlining the exact time he planned to poison my mom. The officers examined the photos, their faces unreadable. This could be anything, the older one said. The bottle looks ordinary, and this paper could be a work note. There's nothing clearly proving intent to kill. Hopelessness crept in. They didn't believe us. You don't understand, I said, struggling to make them see. He's been isolating us for months, controlling all our money, everything we do. We just discovered he's bankrupt and moving funds into secret accounts. Mom, Jenna interrupted, pointing toward the cafe entrance. There, Fatima's here. I turned and saw her tall, composed, wearing a navy blue coat. Even after all these years, her confident stride and sharp eyes were unmistakable. Linda, she said, stopping beside me and taking in the scene at once. I see the police have arrived. And you are? The older officer asked. Attorney Fatima Navarro, she said, handing over her card. I'm a criminal defense lawyer representing Mrs. Linda Cooper and her daughter Jenna Cooper. The officers immediately straightened their posture. Attorney Navarro, the older one began, we received a report from Mr. Richard Cooper claiming his wife is emotionally unstable and might harm her child. I see, Fatima said, her tone calm but cutting. And did it occur to you that Mr. Cooper might be fabricating that to cover his own crimes? The two men hesitated, exchanging uneasy looks. Then let's clarify a few things, she continued, sitting beside me. My client has photographic evidence of a potentially lethal substance and written notes showing a clear plan to administer it. Her daughter also overheard Mr. Cooper discussing the plot over the phone. The officers shifted uncomfortably. They were starting to reconsider. Do you have an arrest warrant or summons for my client? Fatima asked sharply. No, ma'am, the older officer admitted. We're only investigating a missing person report filed by her husband. As you can see, no one's missing, Fatima said firmly. My client is alive and well, simply escaping a direct threat to her life. Mr. Cooper reported finding blood in the girl's room, the younger one interjected. He fears the mother may have harmed her. Jenna gave a dry laugh. That's ridiculous. There's no blood in my room. He staged it. I'd like to confirm the girl's safety, the officer said. Obviously, she's fine, Fatima replied coolly. And she's under my legal protection now. I suggest you return to the station and prepare to receive the criminal complaint I'll be filing within the hour. Formal charges for attempted murder, falsifying evidence, and filing a false police report against Mr. Richard Cooper. The two officers looked uneasy, but didn't object. We'll need you both to come to the station to give statements, the older one said. Of course, Fatima replied calmly. We'll be there within an hour. She looked at them steadily. Now, if you'll excuse us, we need to speak privately. The officers left reluctantly, glancing back at us with concern. Once they were gone, Fatima took my hand. Linda, the situation is more serious than I thought, she said quietly. Richard is building a case against you. He's trying to make you look like an unstable mother who could harm her daughter. What should I do? I asked, fear returning to my chest. First, we need more solid evidence, Fatima said. The photos are a start, but we need the actual poison for testing and documentation of his fraudulent financial transfers. But how can we get that? We can't go back home, Jenna said. We won't have to, Fatima assured her. I'll request a search warrant immediately. I have contacts who can expedite it, especially since a minor is involved. She looked me straight in the eye. Linda, you need to be strong now. Richard will fight dirty. He'll dig up every argument, every stressful moment, and twist them to destroy your credibility. I swallowed hard. How could I not see what kind of person he was? I whispered. People like Richard are master manipulators, Fatima replied. They can maintain a perfect facade for years. Don't blame yourself. Just then, my phone vibrated. A message from Richard. "The police have found you. I'm on my way to the mall. I just want to help. Please don't do anything rash before I get there." I showed Fatima. She stood instantly. "He's coming," she said sharply. "We need to leave now." "Where to?" I asked, helping Jenna grab her things. "To the police station," Fatima said. "It's the safest place right now. He won't try anything there, and we can file the complaint officially before he arrives." We left the cafe, taking a side exit to avoid the main doors. Fatima led us to her car, a simple black sedan parked nearby. Minutes later, we were on our way to the police station. During the drive, Jenna held my hand tightly. Her face was pale, but her eyes were steady. I looked at her, thinking about the small note that had saved my life that morning. How many other women hadn't been as lucky? How many never realized the danger until it was too late? The station was quiet. Fatima led us straight to the captain's office, someone she clearly knew. "Good afternoon, Captain Ryan," she said as we entered. "I have a serious case." The captain looked up, gesturing for us to sit. "My client is being threatened by her husband. We have evidence showing he planned to poison her during a gathering at their home this morning." Captain Ryan frowned. "That's a serious accusation. And we have serious proof," Fatima said, signaling to Jenna to hand over her phone. He examined the photos carefully, much more attentively than the officers at the mall. "We also believe Mr. Cooper has been embezzling funds and falsifying financial documents," Fatima continued. "He's been trying to discredit my client by claiming she's mentally unstable, despite no diagnosis or history of such behavior." "I see," Captain Ryan said, handing the phone back. "We'll need physical evidence, the bottle itself, toxicology tests, something concrete." "That's why I'm requesting a search warrant immediately," Fatima said, producing a folder she had prepared on the way. "There's a minor involved, and we have reason to believe Mr. Cooper is currently staging false evidence." Nearly 2 hours later, while the captain was still reviewing the documents, noise erupted in the hallway. Through the glass panel, I saw Richard walking in with the same 2 officers we'd met earlier. His face was filled with feigned worry and relief, as if he'd just found lost family. "Linda, Jenna," he called, trying to rush in before being stopped by security. "Thank God you're safe." Captain Ryan looked at him, then at me. "This is the man you mentioned?" "Yes," I said, my whole body tense. "This is Richard Cooper, my husband." The captain nodded for the officers to let him in. Richard walked forward, reaching toward Jenna, but she stepped back immediately. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice full of confusion, so convincing that, if I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed him. "Linda, why did you run off like that? Everyone's been worried." "I understand your concern, Mr. Cooper," the captain interjected. "But Mrs. Cooper and her attorney are filing charges of attempted murder against you." Richard's eyes widened as he turned from me to the captain. "That's ridiculous," he exclaimed. "Linda, what are you doing? It's just about the medication I told you. It was for your anxiety." "What medication?" the captain asked, his tone sharp. Richard lowered his voice, pretending to be sympathetic. "Linda suffers from anxiety, sometimes paranoia. Our doctor, Dr. Sanders, prescribed a mild sedative. She thinks I was poisoning her, but it's just her medication." A chill ran down my spine. "That's a lie," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "I've never been diagnosed with anything, and I've never met anyone named Sanders. He's making this up." Richard sighed, as though dealing with a stubborn child. "You see?" he said to the captain. "She denies her condition, refuses to take her medication regularly. It's only getting worse." "Mr. Cooper," Fatima interrupted, her voice cutting like a blade. "My client has never been diagnosed or treated for any mental condition. Can you produce medical records to back up your claim?" Richard faltered briefly, then regained his composure. "I can get them from Dr. Sanders on Monday," he said. "But that's not the point. I just want to bring my wife and daughter home safely." "That won't be possible right now," the captain said firmly. "We have serious allegations from both sides, and we need to investigate." At that moment, Jenna, who had been silent until then, stood up. "I heard everything," she said, staring directly at Richard. Last night you were on the phone saying my mom would drink her tea like always, and it would look like a heart attack. Then you said you'd take care of me next. You're a liar." For a split second, Richard's expression cracked. Rage flickered before he replaced it with fake pity. "Jenna, you misunderstood," he said softly. "I was talking about business. You must have misheard." "No, I didn't," Jenna said firmly, tears glinting in her eyes. "You were going to kill Mom for the insurance money. You're broke, I saw the documents." Richard's jaw tightened. He turned to me. "See what you've done, Linda? You've filled her head with nonsense. You're emotionally abusing her." Before I could respond, the door opened, and an officer entered with a sealed envelope. "Captain," he said, "we just received the preliminary report from the Cooper residence." Captain Ryan opened it, his expression darkening. The air in the room grew heavy. Richard stood frozen. Jenna squeezed my hand, and Fatima watched closely. "Interesting," the captain said, looking straight at Richard. "You claimed there was blood in your daughter's room, correct?" "Yes," Richard replied quickly, his voice full of concern. "When I went in after they fled, I saw blood on the carpet. I feared the worst." "How strange," the captain said, setting the papers down. "A rapid test shows the blood doesn't match your wife or daughter, and a quick comparison indicates it's yours." Richard's face twitched. I don't understand." "It's yours," the captain said evenly, "meaning you planted it yourself." The room went silent. Richard froze for several seconds before stammering, "That's impossible." "There must be a mistake." "Really?" the captain continued. "We also found a small vial of blood in your sock drawer, same match. Looks like you drew it yourself earlier." Richard's face went pale. "Additionally," the captain added, pulling out a photo of the amber bottle Jenna had taken, now sealed in an evidence bag, "a presumptive field test flagged a lethal toxin, and full lab confirmation is underway." "Hard to believe that's anxiety medication, isn't it, Mr. Cooper?" Richard shot up, furious and panicked. "This is a setup," Linda framed me. "When exactly would she have done that?" Fatima asked calmly. "She and her daughter have been here for more than 2 hours. By your own statement, they left the house this morning. Care to explain?" Richard's eyes darted around wildly, like a trapped animal. "You don't understand," he said, voice shaking. "Linda's not who you think she is. She's been stealing from me for months." "Fascinating," the captain interrupted, "because we also found records of regular wire transfers from your joint account to one in the Cayman Islands." Richard's world collapsed before our eyes. The mask of the caring husband fell away, revealing the cold, calculating hatred beneath. "I can explain," he muttered weakly. "I'm sure you can," the captain said, standing. "Mr. Richard Cooper, you're under arrest for attempted murder, falsifying evidence, filing a false report, and financial fraud." As the officers moved toward him, Richard exploded, his face twisted with rage. "You ruined everything," he screamed, lunging at me. "You ruined everything." The officers restrained him before he could reach me. For the first time, I saw his true face, the monster hidden behind the mask I'd lived with for 2 years. "You think I ever loved you?" he roared. "You're just a pathetic teacher with a spoiled kid. All I wanted was your money and that insurance payout." Jenna trembled in my arms. I held her tightly as the police handcuffed Richard and dragged him out, still shouting. "Take him away," the captain ordered. The door closed, leaving a heavy silence. He turned to us, his tone softening. "Mrs. Cooper, you and your daughter will need to give formal statements, but first please accept my apologies for what you've been through." I nodded weakly, still unable to process it all. The man I had slept beside, called my husband, had been a stranger all along. Fatima squeezed my hand. "You okay, Linda?" "I don't know," I admitted. "It'll take a long time to make sense of any of this." The captain brought us water and told us to rest before the statements. I held Jenna close. She was still trembling. "You saved me today," I whispered. "I'll never forget that." She nodded, tears streaking down her face. The next few hours passed in a blur of questioning and paperwork. I told them everything, how I'd met Richard after my divorce, how he'd charmed me with his generosity, then slowly gained control of my finances, isolating me from friends and family. Jenna recounted the phone call, the documents, the bottle, and how she'd written the note that warned me to get out. Those 5 words had saved my life. When the police searched the house further, they found extensive proof of Richard's financial crimes, from forged signatures to transfers of my money into secret accounts. He'd even purchased a $1 million life insurance policy under my name, claiming it was for the house. Later lab tests confirmed the truth. The bottle contained a lethal substance intended to make my death look like natural causes. By the time everything was done, it was late at night. Richard was in custody, awaiting trial. Fatima took us to her home, refusing to let me return to mine. "Stay here as long as you need," she said, showing us the guest room. "We'll figure things out tomorrow." That night, lying beside Jenna in the quiet room, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Richard's face morphing from the gentle husband I thought I knew to the murderer I'd narrowly escaped. I still remember that final look of hatred when his mask fell away. How could I have been so blind? How did I miss the signs that were right in front of me? "Mom," Jenna whispered in the dark, her voice small and trembling. "Do you think he really never loved us? Not even a little?" Her question broke my heart. Even though everything was over, Jenna was still just a 15-year-old girl who had lost someone she once called a father first, her biological dad after the divorce, and now Richard, in the most horrifying way possible. "I don't know, sweetheart," I said honestly. "But I do know this: it wasn't our fault. Some people are simply incapable of love. They only see others as tools to serve their own goals." Jenna was silent for a long moment. "How do we live after this, Mom?" she asked softly. It was the kind of question no one could answer easily. "One day at a time," I said, pulling her close. "We move forward together." In the weeks that followed, Jenna and I began to uncover the full web of lies Richard had built. He had never been the successful businessman he claimed to be. His company had gone bankrupt years earlier, and he married me only for the inheritance I received after my parents passed the condo I sold to start a new life. Every sweet word, every romantic gesture, had been part of a cold, calculated plan. The investigation revealed something even darker. I wasn't his first victim. Before me, there had been a widow who died naturally just 6 months after marrying him. No one suspected a thing. She had a history of heart problems, and the heart attack passed without question. Richard inherited everything, squandered it, and went hunting for his next target, me. The trial became national news. A husband plotting to poison his wife for money, stopped only by the courage of a teenage girl. It captured the country's attention. Jenna and I had to relive the nightmare over and over, with the police, the prosecutors, and finally in court, but instead of breaking me, the process set me free. Each testimony, each piece of evidence, helped me understand that I wasn't foolish or weak. I was a victim of a master manipulator. When the verdict came, Richard was sentenced to 30 years in prison for attempted murder, plus 15 more for financial fraud, with a separate homicide investigation pending regarding his first wife. 6 months after that fateful day, Jenna and I moved into a smaller apartment in the suburbs. It wasn't luxurious, but it was ours, a place without shadows. Later, I found Jenna's note again and tucked it away in my nightstand, because I never wanted to forget what it had saved us from. A year passed. Life slowly settled into something resembling peace, though invisible scars remained. One sunny afternoon, Jenna and I were preparing lunch together in the bright kitchen, a new tradition we cherished. I watched her slice tomatoes carefully, her movements calm, her face more composed than ever. "What are you thinking about, Mom?" she asked with a small smile. "I'm thinking how lucky we are," I said, surprised at how true it felt. Jenna raised an eyebrow. "Lucky? After everything we've been through?" I set the wooden spoon down and turned fully toward her. "Yes, not because we met Richard, but because we survived him, because we have each other, because you were brave enough to save me that day." Jenna's cheeks turned pink, as they always did when I brought it up. "Anyone would have done the same," she murmured. "No," I said, shaking my head. "Many people would have been too scared, too unsure of themselves. But you trusted your instincts and acted. You saved me." Jenna gave a shy smile and returned to the tomatoes. Dr. Bennett said people who've been through trauma often develop a sharper instinct for danger. Maybe that's why I could sense something off about Richard, even when you didn't. Dr. Bennett was the therapist we both saw after everything happened, one of the best decisions we ever made. She's right, I said. You've always been intuitive, even as a child. After the divorce, you learned to tell who was genuine and who wasn't. Jenna smiled faintly. Maybe that's how I saw through people like Richard. We cooked in comfortable silence. The warm light filtered through the window, the scent of herbs filling the air, a peace I once thought I'd never feel again. The doorbell rang. That must be Fatima, I said, glancing at the clock. She's always early. Fatima was no longer just my lawyer but also a close friend. She came for dinner once a month, a tradition that started with legal discussions and grew into real friendship. I opened the door to find her smiling brightly, holding a bottle of wine. I've got good news, she said, hugging me, and then Jenna. And this time, it's truly good news. We gathered in the living room, eager to hear. The police finally found the missing evidence in Luciana's case, Richard's first wife, she said. They exhumed her body and found traces of arsenic in her hair and nails. I shuddered. Knowing for certain that Richard had killed before me filled me with both dread and vindication. So that means, I began, but Fatima nodded. He'll be charged with first-degree murder. With the new evidence, plus his current sentence, he'll be serving life without parole. Jenna exhaled, almost whispering. So he'll never get out? Never, Fatima confirmed. He won't be able to hurt anyone else. I should have felt relieved, but instead there was a quiet sadness not for him, but for women like Luciana, who hadn't had a Jenna to save them. There's one more thing, Fatima added softly. Richard's remaining assets have been liquidated. The restitution settlement is finalized. All of it goes to you and Jenna. It's not enough to cover everything he took, but it's a start. Jenna and I looked at each other, speechless. How much? I asked. About $500,000, Fatima said. Enough for Jenna to attend any college she wants, and for you both to live securely. I couldn't speak. For a year, we'd lived frugally on my teaching salary and what little savings we had left. I don't know how to thank you, I whispered. By opening this wine and celebrating. Fatima laughed, raising the bottle. It's time to close the past and look ahead. As Fatima opened the wine and Jenna set the table, I slipped into the bedroom and opened the small wooden box. Inside was the note that had saved my life. Those 5 words sat neatly folded. Pretend to be sick and leave. I stared at them, thinking about how different everything could have been if Jenna hadn't been brave enough to write them. When I returned to the living room, Jenna and Fatima were laughing about colleges and future plans. Looking at them, my wise, fearless daughter and the loyal friend who had stood by us through everything, I felt nothing but gratitude. I raised my glass as Fatima poured the wine. A toast, I said. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, they echoed, smiling as the afternoon sunlight shimmered through the glasses like a promise of brighter days ahead. As Jenna and I sat down to lunch, talking about the future instead of the past, I realized that though the scars remained, they were no longer marks of pain but of survival. Richard had tried to destroy us, but his betrayal had only made us stronger in ways he could never imagine. I had learned to trust my instincts again, to see the warning signs in relationships, and most of all, to value the strength that had always been within me, the strength I only discovered when I needed it most. Jenna had grown from an insecure teenager into a confident young woman who knew her worth. Therapy had helped her heal not just from Richard's betrayal but also from the abandonment of her biological father. Recently, she told me she wanted to study psychology because therapy had given us back our peace. Mom, Jenna said while we were washing dishes, with Fatima drying and stacking them nearby. Do you remember that conversation at the hospital, right after everything happened? I nodded. Back then, we'd both undergone full medical tests to make sure Richard hadn't been poisoning us even earlier. I asked how we were going to move forward, Jenna continued. You reminded me we'd get through it slowly, together. Of course I remember, I said, my throat tightening. And I think we're doing it, aren't we? Jenna smiled, a bright, genuine smile that seemed to light up the whole kitchen. "I think so too. We're really moving forward." I wrapped my arms around her, my hands still wet with soap. "Yes, we are." That night, after Fatima left and Jenna was asleep, I sat on the balcony watching the city lights in the distance. I thought about all the women who might still be living with their own Richards, unaware of the danger under their own roofs. In that quiet moment, I realized our story wasn't just a warning, it was a message of hope. Proof that it's possible to survive the deepest betrayal, to rebuild from the ruins, and that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected place, like a hastily written note from a 15-year-old girl. The next morning, I began to write everything down: the story of Jenna, of me, and of the note that saved my life. And if you're reading this now, I hope you carry 2 lessons I learned the hardest way. First, trust your instincts, even when you can't explain why. And second, never underestimate the power of a small act of courage, like the 5 words my daughter wrote that morning. Pretend to be sick and leave. Sometimes, to find your true strength, you have to start by pretending you already have it. And one day, you'll realize you're not pretending anymore. Do you believe that sometimes adversity is life's way of showing us who truly loves us? Share your thoughts below. And if this story resonated with you, stay with me so we can keep listening, learning, and rediscovering the right kind of love together.